Welcome to the Boston Art Podcast. I am Brian Huntress.
I'm Theodora Earthworms.
And this is the episode.
Woo!
Yeah, so I guess we could just get right into it. So do you book the shows here? New World Tavern? I didn't even know this whole stage area was back here.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
This is a beautiful room.
I've booked the last 11 years.
Wow.
Nice.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it feels like 5 minutes. So,
Geez.
yeah.
Wow, so I guess for context, we're at the New World Tavern.
tim.newworldtavern@gmail.com.
Amazing. And we're in Plymouth Center. How did you have you lived in Plymouth your whole life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Theo. I don't know how much someone would brag about that, but yes, I have.
Honestly, I didn't grow up here, but I enjoy it.
It's a nice,
So-
to be honest with you, it's a lot nicer than it was as far as things to do,
Yeah.
art centers and this and other places. Not that long ago in the 90s, there was nobody down here
Yeah.
because there was no way to put a restaurant down here because there was sewer. We were on an old sewer system that was taxed.
Oh, no
So
way.
until they built the new sewer thing, because you have to have in a restaurant, you have to have X amount of gallon usage for X amount of people that sit
Yeah.
and that stuff. So no one could put a restaurant down here. So when they finally moved over, actually New World Tavern was one of the first, certainly the biggest one that moved in, and the first to do craft beer in the South Shore, maybe, in any kind of extensive amounts.
It's hard to imagine the Strip without bars or restaurants.
I know, and you get the old people online that are, downtown is not what it was, and all that other stuff. And I remember that downtown. No, things move on, and some things fuck up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. In the late 80s, early 90s, the Kingston Mall came in,
Yeah.
and that obliterated everything downtown.
Oh, all the retail businesses and maybe
Almost
more
all of them.
practical shops and
Yeah.
shit like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was where Set in the Space was. Do you remember the CVS that was there?
No.
I keep forgetting how young you are. Yeah, because before that, it was Pilgrim Drug, and that's where I bought my comic books.
Oh, shit.
When I was a kid. So in other words, there was the corner drugstore, and this place we're in right now is Puritan Clothing, and
Wow.
it was like the place where everybody bought.
Bought their pilgrim
Yeah,
hats?
no, yeah, right. No, like when you had to have gym uniforms, they were the ones that sold them.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Okay.
I bought all my real Levi's here before.
Wow.
There's no such thing as a real Levi. Well, there is for a couple $100, but
Yeah, seriously.
Depop only.
like the ones that you would bring, literally you could put under your arm with an ironing board because it wouldn't move, and you'd walk home, and the thing would be so stiff you'd have to wash it 5 times to get it to even. And then they decided to make pre-washed and ruined everything.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing here. It's mostly now post-COVID. I'm trying to open it up to more independent bands, original bands, that kind of stuff. But essentially, it comes down to one. I've been booking for a long time because previous to this, I booked a club called Church in Boston, which was a 300 capacity nightclub over on Kilmarnock Street, which is in the Fenway. I don't know what it's called now. Back in the day, it was called the Linwood, and that was kind of like a local dive bar that bands played at.
Yeah.
But I booked Church for a couple of years, where I worked with bigger bands, not Boston Garden bands, but bigger bands.
Sure, yeah.
Here, it started out more of finding stuff that went good with craft beer.
Yeah.
So a lot of Americana stuff, and that went really good. Then that tanked, and it was hard to figure out what to get in here. And post-COVID, we decided it was time to start charging an admission.
Oh, was there no admission before?
No, we were always free up
wow.
until COVID.
Huh.
And I had been trying to tell them for years, you need an admission will help not only you, but it helps people like to pay for things. And I
Yeah.
mean that in a way there's some kind of inherent value when you hand over your money. There might not be, but I think people like that.
We talk about that a lot, actually, where
Yeah.
we have gone to a million shows that are in someone's fucking living room
Yeah.
or basement or something, and those are awesome. But we often talk about the kind of theoretical value exchange between that, and we've been kind of wondering, I guess, about the theory of whether or not does something become more valuable because you're charging for it? Like, I wonder if that marketing of something that's like an intellectual property, like a performance,
Right.
Like it isn't like an object,
Right.
But like, how do you find that value changes?
That's a really good question that I don't think I can answer either. It's the one thing I see, and I'm not here as much as I used to be. I work mostly from home. But the one thing I do see is years ago, people would stay, linger around, and then, I mean, it came down to me seeing, like, somebody would look at their phone, and then they'd leave. So somebody was at, like, another bar down the street, and, come over here, we're all having a good time. But when you pay and get in, we're seeing more people stay into the end of the night.
Yeah,
And,
that makes sense.
and more people that are like, no, I just paid $10. You can come over here. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that is somewhat of the, I don't know if that's value or not, but it certainly is to the bar because people stay longer, and the longer they stay, the more they drink. And inherently, all I book is people to sell my beer.
Yeah.
That's real. I'm legitimately judged on the register over there.
Oh, wow.
And I'm only as good as my last good show. And that's pretty inherent with anything in the music business. If you're an A&R guy that signs, I don't know, Tame Impala,
Yeah.
and you sign them to a label, and you're the hottest shit in the world, and you sign a bad band, you're out.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that Tame Impala's done now. You've already signed them. It's a really, music business is probably, as far as the arts are concerned, probably the most cutthroat. As you go up, there's actually, the further you go up, the more backstabbing and bullshit.
It's like the higher the reward, the less safety in your status or career.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about people in the industry, not, the guy that's the good bouncer at the House of Blues is going to be a good bouncer as long as he wants to stay.
Yeah.
But the guy that books the bands, and he books 4 or 5 dead shows, he's about all it takes when you're out.
Yeah.
So, and the same, as I said, with A&R people for major labels, you're only as good as what the last band that is that you brought to the table. Because in your world, and I'm not an artist, I can draw stick figures and that's about it. But I love art. In your world, it's a little more, I mean, there's nothing that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing as congregated together as, say, the music business, which moves along through all these, you start off playing a small club and people like you, and you go to the next one, next thing you know, you're playing the House of Blues or whatever the new place is in Cambridge right now. I forget, not Thunder Road. I forget what they call it. Roadrunner.
Oh, gotcha. I haven't been up there.
Yeah, I was just on a thread that somebody was talking about Roadrunner, and I wrote, "Oh, great! Just what I want, another revenue, another corporate revenue, whatever." I said, and people were like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "It's corporations that are doing this. This is not what it was when I was up there as a player, and previous to that, as a guy that worked with a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Way different, way different." And I listened.
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was going to say, how do you feel it's changed over, what does that mean?
It's corporations.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest one. And I'm a businessman too, as you know. And I have to walk a weird line. And that's why I'm good at this job, is because I know how to talk to the musicians, and I know what is expected of me
from the business.
owners.
Yeah.
So I can kind of go, I can sit in a meeting with them, and then I can sit in a meeting with a bunch of, I was just going to say dumb musicians, and then everyone's going to hate me. But
I'm sure they'd agree too.
A bunch of, musicians, and I can talk their language, and then I can go talk. And that's kind of what I do. And then everything is blamed on me, from the bands to the...
Gotcha.
And for not a lot of money. But that's essentially, I think corporations have been doing it by design. They certainly have when it comes to your average downtown.
Yeah.
We'll just buy that drugstore and then put them out of business, and we'll be over here with our, CVS.
Yeah.
And I think it's essentially the same thing with the music business. I think that I don't think we need another 3,000 capacity nightclub in the city.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. They're probably going to prove me wrong, but I don't see that, because if I was still in my band, and we did relatively well in the city, we definitely did. We weren't going to play there.
Yeah.
You know, there was no way. Maybe if you knew somebody and pulled 10,000 strings, you get on an open slot there, but you're not going to like play there.
Yeah.
You need places where people can start, where they can nurture. And right now, it's in basements in Alston.
Yeah.
But we had really small shitty clubs to medium-sized shitty clubs that were all ours, and they were all independently owned, and a lot of stuff went on that you would never see go on today.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to like, so that's like every time we talk to somebody that's even 10 years older than us, they like a lot of, I guess like the idea of things being very corporate now and 10, 20, 30 years ago being like gritty or mom and pops.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know. And I guess I'm wondering like, I'm trying to think of like a way to frame this correctly, but like not necessarily why did that happen, but like what, I guess like as somebody who you had your start when it was still like very open and
Very
mom and
vibrant.
pops.
Very.
And now you're still operating, you're still
Yes.
in this world, even though like in this, you know,
Yes.
in this scene. Fuck, what am I trying to say? I'm losing my question here. I guess like what, like not why did that change, but like how do
I change with it?
I guess I'm kind of wondering.
I mean, and I'm going to tell you, I don't know. I mean, in between, you know, I really truly started booking. I mean, I'd promoted shows in the past, but I really didn't start booking until it was Church in Boston, and that was like 2009 or something around there. So, and they weren't corporate, but there was a lot of money there that put a nice place together.
Okay, I guess a better way to frame my question. Why do you think that mom and pops or the grittiness and the small clubs or the medium-sized clubs, like why do bands need that?
To grow, to develop. You can go in your studio and develop. A band really can't go in their bedroom, and I mean they can practice all they want, but that's only half of what a performance is.
Yeah.
So you can practice all you want, but you need to be on a stage to kind of finalize your craft, if you will, or for that matter, to be noticed.
There needs to be rooms.
Yeah, and that's the way it was. There was, I can think at one time there was probably 5 or 6 clubs that would be under 500 capacity running on any given night. And previous to me, which would be the first wave of, let's say, punk rock music, where music really changed in the mid-70s, they would run a band like 3 nights in a row, 4 nights in a row. That's like unheard of now.
Yeah.
You know, like a band, there was a band back then that was big called the Real Kids, and I'd look at old, concert things and stuff, and it would be like they're playing the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and you'd be like, wow, that's weird. That would never happen because people would lose their attention span, and that obviously is going. The longer and longer we go forward in the future, I'm seeing people with less and less attention span to most anything, because you get all your attention you need.
Yeah.
Right.
there.
Do you feel like that? I was going to ask about the internet too, because like I feel like most younger people they start a band or they're trying to get their name out there. Everyone's putting all of their chips on the internet and promoting digitally. Like,
Which is needed.
Yeah, which is probably a vital part of the market right now. But
we used to make posters with cutting out paper and Xerox them, and then go to the city and staple them onto telephone poles.
So
We're doing that this week.
Yeah, we had a conversation.
But they shut that down.
Oh yeah.
They shut it down. There's a $500 fine to a club now.
Oh, seriously?
So if the police or someone complains and they hand them the poster and it says
New World Tavern.
New World Tavern on it, they'll
But then
come right
you
to the
can
New
get a
World
fine.
Tavern and they'll find the club.
No
we're
shit.
not doing that this week then.
I had no idea. Well, we were promoting an art show, but
Yeah, an art show will be fine.
Yeah.
It's more. It got rampant because of the.
because of the music scene.
There was so much music going on. There was so many of these posters everywhere that after a while it just got to be too much.
That seems like a good thing to me. Like, I understand from a, like, what is the word? Like a municipal perspective, why
Yeah,
that could be like a graffiti issue, I guess.
Yeah.
But we were talking to somebody a few days ago about this, that a lot of people will say that the art scene, like the visual art scene at least in Boston, is really almost mute compared to New York. And part of the reason is because there's this street advertising. And people are putting up their tags, their stickers, their posters, and you can find out about things just by walking around your neighborhood that are happening locally. Where Boston and the South Shore too, in some ways, are kind of more like cleansed of that, and it stifles the community. Maybe do you feel
Right.
the same?
So was New York City, though.
Yeah.
New York City was really, really bad, and then it was cleaned up, and now it's slipping back
Yeah.
to the. Some people will say gritty. I say tons
Get
of
mugged.
tons of criminal activity.
Yeah.
That went away. I hate to say who did that because I think he's an absolute nut now, but Rudy
Giuliani,
Yeah.
yeah.
is the one who cleaned the city up. And he did that through a book you can read called Broken Windows.
Oh.
And Broken Windows, there's people who are going to listen to this, assuming your age, that are probably going to look for my house and shoot me or kill me for even bringing that up. But
you know.
it's where the only way to truly fight crime is you have to take care of the low-level stuff, and the big-level stuff comes by itself. So I had a friend living in New York City when it started, and it started with them ticketing people smoking cigarettes in Grand Central Station. It's always been no smoking in there, but they
Yeah.
never did anything about it. So Giuliani said, we're going to start ticketing people, and they did. And that's kind of where the whole thing started, till it got to a point where I was down there in the late 90s, and I couldn't even recognize the place that I stayed at 12 years previous when I was working with bands.
Oh wow.
I mean, he cleaned up everything. There was not really any tagging anymore. And you're talking to a guy that my favorite artist is probably at this point Banksy.
Yeah.
And I find a big difference between tagging and street art.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I don't see any appeal to street art. Excuse me, to tagging.
The tagging. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I mean, even it's at the point now that even Banksy stuff will get tagged over.
Yeah.
At one point, that was supposed to be an unwritten code that you didn't mess with somebody else's stuff. But
Yeah.
it's people that are jealous that want to ruin
Yeah.
somebody that's doing something pretty slick, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of aggression and tagging and shit. And I guess to bring it back too, to like when, like to the, I guess your origins and even like this time before all this shit was cleaned up. When did you start getting involved either in playing shows or organizing them?
I'm going to seem really old now.
Please do. It's information that we
I'll
love to have.
I'll start it this way. I was a kid from Plymouth that graduated in 1980. I was one of maybe 3 punk rock kids in my high school, if that. I didn't dress that way. I never have. But I had some friends that did, and they got a lot of shit for it from the quote-unquote jocks or whatever.
Yeah.
I was probably the first skaters in Plymouth ever. And that wasn't understood, even in high school at that time. Like, oh, what kind of thing is that? You're not playing football anymore, now you're skateboarding.
Yeah.
But I was truly would say that's, if I could stand on one thing about Plymouth, I would say that I was probably in a group of 10 guys that were the first skaters in Plymouth. Outside of sidewalk surfing in the 60s that maybe somebody did.
Yeah.
But we ended up building quarter pipes and that kind of stuff.
Where did you guys skate?
This is a really interesting thing. We built a ramp first down on Chilton Street at my friend's house, and you had to push uphill to go up the ramp. So when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, that's not a problem, but it wasn't getting us anywhere. So we ended up building a quarter pipe and putting it behind the Mount Pleasant School, which was in my neighborhood over on Whiting Street in Plymouth.
Yeah.
And we were able to put another ramp there, so we had like this kind of like lip slide, not vert ramp, and then this quarter pipe ramp, and nobody ever said a thing.
Wow.
For 2 or 3 years we were there.
That's awesome.
And I don't know why, and it would never happen today,
Yeah.
ever. I will say my dad worked for the school system. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I really don't. I don't see why it would, because it's, my dad wouldn't have the influence to stop something that was like liability suits and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I don't know. But I have photos I can send you because I know that you skate. I watch
Yeah.
your skate and stuff. You're way better than I was.
Thanks.
But I'm from the Jay Adams, Tony Alva.
Sure, Dogtown.
Yeah, I really believe that was the fucking coolest motherfuckers that ever were.
They definitely were cool as fuck.
So
yeah.
and I worshipped it.
Yeah.
But the only way to get any of the information was like through Skateboarder magazine.
Right.
And that meant I had to like sit around and wait for the mailman to show up. That's how excited I was to get the next one to see what the next trick was. There was no video, which happened a little later on with the Paul Peralta videos.
Oh, right.
But that's how we did it. And so we kind of just learned on our own. But we had this dude, he was our age, but he was really good at construction. And we ended up putting pool coping on the quarter pipe and all sorts of shit. It was fun. And
That's really cool.
I just had some photos sent to me that I'd never seen before of me skating, and I'm like, wow, that was a different time. But we also learned about punk rock through the skateboard community. That's where I learned about Devo. That's where I learned about the Clash. All of that stuff. It was either in the magazines or the Z-Boys were talking about it, and if they said it was good, I was there. I was getting it. You know what I mean? It was like you had to have some kind of mentors when you were 15 or 16, and my mentors were not in Plymouth. They were literally in Santa Monica, California.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, and did it for a long time. And then I sold my skateboard for a shit ton of money. And they're worth, what I was riding is worth crazy. I don't even understand that money now.
Wow.
But I sold my beat up old deck alone, just the deck, and it was beat up for $400 or $500, I forget.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And then I sold my friend's early Paul Peralta for a little over $1,000.
Wow.
And those were both street boards that had been ridden and everything else. So I know some of the like old store stock can sell for thousands. But it seems you have to be it has to be the cool shit.
Yeah.
Right.
There was lame shit in boards then too.
Right.
But if you had the Alva, the early Alva skates, the early Paul Peralta, the Dogtowns, which my buddy has, which is worth even more.
Yeah.
Then, because that's all that artwork from, I think his name was Wes Humpston. But he was a graphic designer for the surfboard shop, because that's where the whole thing started. The
Zephyr.
The Zephyr surfboards. And he was the one who started doing what I would consider to be the gnarliest of art on boards with the cross Dogtown and all the weird
iconic.
shit. Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. So that's what I did. And then in 1983, when I was old enough, outside of a couple of shows I snuck into with a fake ID, 1983, I walked into the Rat, and I don't think I ever left.
Where was the Rat again?
The Rat was in Kenmore Square. Now, to tell you exactly, it's not there anymore. The building's not even there. It's part of the hotel that's right in the square across from the bus station. I don't know if Boston University still has their bookstore.
Is there like a guitar center there right now too?
It might
I
be
can't even
across
think
the
of here.
street,
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
There is one line from the end of the hotel that's the same like border of the other building that I remember in 1983. And that's the only way you can tell. And it used to be a row of, there was like Blaine School of Hair Design, and then some, and if you went up a little bit more, there's like the corner rounds to go up towards Fenway there. I'm on that side. There's a Store 24 or something right there at the corner.
Yeah.
That was always there, but I think it was 7-Eleven or whatever. And that's about it.
Wow.
But when I was there was a vintage shop above the Rat called Bertha Cool's that everybody went to. Strawberries Records was right next door. And then that whole row from where I'm telling you where the 7-Eleven is, walking back towards Mass Ave, so walking back that way. That whole row all the way down to what is only left now is where like Nuggets Records is, which is about a block down. That was all two-tiered stores. So there was stores, you walked down some steps, and then there was stores you walked up. And there was Mexican restaurants, there was a package store there, it was, vibrant.
Yeah.
And that's where all the punk rockers hung out on the weekends. And the guys that, I didn't hang out with any of those guys, but that was the place to be.
Yeah.
So when you first pulled up there, like, if you could paint the scene, I guess, to us, like the Rat, like this legendary club.
Yes.
We've heard it mentioned like on other episodes and other people just talking to me throughout my life. When you first pulled up there, your first show there, like, tell us about that experience. Like, what was it like in the club? What were the people like?
It's so funny because my first few years there, I wasn't a musician. I was an enormous music fan. I first remember it as being rumored to be so notorious and so deadly and dangerous.
Like people punch you in the fucking face,
like that kind of
get
shit.
beat up.
And so when you looked at it, it was this old brick building, so the Rathskeller above it, and you walked in, and it was like an old bar.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, there was a guy with a apron on as a bartender, and the bar went down to the right-hand side, and then there was seats. I mean, it wasn't a nice bar, but it was like just your average Boston shithole bar.
Sure.
But maybe even a scale up. The club was downstairs. So you either walked in and took a left and went down the stairs to the music, or you walked straight, and that was where the main bar was. And there was a barbecue place there called the Hoodoo Barbecue. And that was considered to be one of the top 3 barbecue restaurants in the country.
Oh, wow.
And the best world ever was like a Friday night when, like, they started getting awards. They were in Table Magazine, which is an industry magazine, and Jimmy Ryan, who was the cook, chef, got all these, like, this notoriety. So you'd be on a Friday night, you'd be waiting for your friends, and these people would be coming in with, like, suits on because they had read, all these reviews about this place. And then there's people pushing past them that got, like, red mohawks, and like it was this mix of people it was crazy. It was fun to see.
Yeah.
But it was, because it didn't, I didn't see anyone get spooked out and leave, so people stayed there and took in the whole experience because the experience was cool. I mean, it was cheap beer, the food was amazing, and if you weren't a rock and roller, you'd look around and be like, who are all these weirdos? So that's what comes to my mind. I saw some shows there that early on that would be like, to some people in this world, I guess, like they wouldn't be able to believe it. But I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers there.
Wow.
And there was less than 50 people.
Oh my gosh.
I could go to the bar and get a beer and come back and stand in front of Anthony Kiedis. It was just after their first record. They were on their first, like, countrywide tour. I liked the record because I liked the guy that produced it from another band. I went to that. I remember me and my buddy were like, wow, I thought there'd be more people than that. I didn't know if it would be filled up, but I thought there'd be more.
They didn't staple up enough posters.
Yeah, right. I saw a sneak appearance by REM there.
Wow.
Which is legendary.
Oh, yeah.
There's a photo of it on the REM website, and I'm in the photo.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you can see a much younger Tim. But I'm hard to miss because the Rat was weird. The stage kind of went against the wall on one side, and then it was open on the other. So most people that were like in other bands or connected would stand, like, you'd think you were backstage, which there was none. It's just you were standing on the side.
Yeah.
So this girl took the photo. She's a famous photographer for bands, and so it goes between Peter Buck and Michael Stipe, and looks out at the crowd. And I'm at the 6'3.5", so it was easy to see my head over everybody else's. So that was really cool. That was probably one of my coolest experiences there, because the band's Husker Du was the band that was playing. They didn't announce that REM was playing until 10 o'clock at night. So I was there at 9 because my bartender friend told me they were playing. And I was downstairs, and like Mike Mills, the REM bass drummer, was like right next to me at the bar. Like they were all out just walking around, and I loved REM at the time, so I didn't even want to talk to them because never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Always be disappointed.
Yeah.
Always. So I walked out of the BU bookstore. I wanted to get my book signed by Lou Reed, and I waited about halfway through. I've been a fan of Lou Reed since I was able to listen to music from an older brother. And about halfway through, I walked out because I didn't like his demeanor. I was like, I'm afraid. I don't want to.
Was he just looking kind of not happy?
Not happy. He's kind of got a pompous attitude to him.
I could see that, yeah.
And he's you know, he has no problem telling someone to fuck off for no reason.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm just like, you know what? This is going to be like another hour, and I'm just going to get more and more like dejected every time I move forward. Like he had to go to the bathroom, and there was a policeman there, which I think they have for all of them. But then there was like a line, and it was like 30 feet away from the table, and you could only walk up one at a time that way, which I also think kind of sucks. It kind of makes it dry and boring.
Yeah.
And I just finally was like, I can't, because I'm going to want to say like, your music meant a lot to me when I was a little kid, and he's going to say fuck you, and I'm going to be outside crying and ruining the tears are going to ruin the signature on the book. I mean, that's the way I started to feel, so I just left.
Probably a good instinct.
Yeah, I know. Though then he died, and then I said to myself, damn, I wish I kind of, at least had some experience. It would have been, in hindsight, 20 years later, it would be like, this is a cool story.
Yeah.
Like he told me to fuck off. It's, I did get that once at the Orpheum with the Pretenders. I was drunk and young, and I yelled out, "I love Chrissy," and Chrissy gave me the middle finger and told me to fuck off. I was in the balcony. Just fuck off. And I thought I was like you, with all the kids, and you're 16 or something, you're a little insecure.
Oh.
And like you sit back down, and you're like,
Like, sorry.
sorry, embarrassed you guys.
Oh, man.
But that kind of feeling with me in shows went away really fast, and I was at everything I could possibly go to that had anything to do with new wave or punk. I was at the Orpheum sometimes 3 times a month before I was old enough to go to clubs. I saw so many bands at the Orpheum. It's amazing the stuff that I saw. Like bands that ended up getting bigger that they would never play.
Yeah.
I saw U2 there.
Wow.
I saw the Police there. I saw, it's on the Clash. I saw them actually there four times, and they never came in and played a club. The Clash, they always played at least a theater.
Yeah.
Before they broke up. So back to the Rat. I don't know. I just kind of got in with it, and then I kind of got in with some people. I had booked a show over at the Ranch House in Marshfield, which was this old. I keep looking at you because I'm just like, you got to know.
I'm like,
Theo, you got to know what I'm talking about. And then she's like, no, I'm not 100.
like I know Marshfield.
It was literally the roadhouse of roadhouses. It was in the middle of nowhere, and it was the biggest barn shithole that ever was. But they booked bands all the time.
That's what's up, though.
Right, and I booked this band called Scruffy the Cat, who later had gone on all the way into the 90s. They were in Rolling Stone magazine. They did quite well for themselves. Kind of a, I don't know, like a retro rock kind of thing with a little bit of a new wavy or punk twist to it. Mm-hmm. But they were legit, like touring everywhere and playing with some really big people, and they really, really did well.
Wow.
But I think that was their first show that they did.
Oh, wow.
That I booked. Actually, I know it is now because I still have. They used to give you tickets, like people that own clubs and actually like kind of cared and spent a little bit of money and like, here's your tickets and you have to sell those and all this other shit. And I still have my ticket, which is now on the Scruffy the Cat webpage of history or something like that. And then I booked them again at the Garibaldi Club in North Plymouth, which is right on Castle Street.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
In North Plymouth? Oh.
We call it Fat and Baldy. Garibaldi. But
It's a bar?
it's an Italian club.
Okay.
You know, like an Elks Club or whatever.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Right.
But it's, I don't know, it's an Italian one, that's all I know.
Yeah.
Right.
And they would let us have shows there once in a while. I booked Scruffy there and a couple other bands with them. Then I lived across the street, and one night I pulled up and I didn't even know, and the Freeze were playing. They were like one of the better hardcore bands in the scene. How you doing? Good. So I booked. I saw the Freeze over there until some girl jumped on some guy's back and fell over and got a concussion, and they shut the show down.
Oh.
You know, the usual shit that probably still happens.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Wow.
But then there was another club called Chet's Last Call, and that was in North Station. and I can point out the building. I'm not sure what it is now, but it was at one time above what was called the Penalty Box Lounge, Boston Garden Penalty Box Lounge.
Right.
I didn't find out until a documentary was made on the club that the penalty box was where all the gangsters hung out, like gangsters, like the real ones.
Yeah.
Like the
bad ones.
The Italian ones
Yeah.
that, like, you know, the heads wouldn't hang out there, but, you know, probably the hitmen. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a shithole. It was a shithole.
Oh, the new
Oh, it's my
plan.
mom.
Oh, that's crazy.
There's some irony to that. And I got in there because it was the only bar that I knew of where the owner sat at the bar every night.
Wow.
And I started to know him because I'm not afraid to talk to people. And
Yeah.
then he hired me to do some work at the door, which was, at that time, it was like, for me, it was like this fucking great thing because there was so many drugs going around in this place that I would go and I would work from like 9 to 11:30. He would usually cut the door, maybe 12. And I would get paid $50 or $60 cash. And then the guy that was the sound man that didn't have to do multi-duty between the door and the sound, he would give me like a half gram of cocaine. So I would walk out, you know, this kid with like half gram
Cash
of
and
cocaine
coke.
and right.
Oh, yeah.
But I also would leave there sometimes at the end of the night, and Chet would give me a 6-pack for the ride home. Because back then,
Didn't matter.
it didn't matter. No, it did not matter. It's sad to say because I can give you instances that I shouldn't have been driving.
Right,
You know,
sure.
So I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky. But that's what. And then he wouldn't let you pay for it. He'd be just, next time you come, just bring me another 6-pack back. So now I'm waiting in line to get into a club, and I got my own 6-pack with me, and there are people looking at me like, what the hell's going on? So I got in good with him, and that was where the real band started. Like that was like, you were nobody, he would book you. So it was, I think the capacity there couldn't have been more than it's got to be smaller than this place. It was small.
So I'm curious to know in the beginning before you start, so you were just talking about you were playing in bands at this point.
No, I didn't start.
Or you
playing.
were booking or working with them?
I was working with them.
Okay.
I was hanging around a lot of musicians, that kind of stuff. And then I ended up, because I worked for some bands around the Plymouth area and stuff, whether it was light, sound, humping stuff into the club, whatever it was. I ended up working for a band called the Dogmatics.
Yeah,
which-
I'm familiar. My uncle Rudy actually,
Oh, that's your uncle?
Rudy Childs, if you know him, yeah. He has parties at his house every year.
Yeah, they play.
They play every time.
Yeah, those are all my really, really good friends. They're playing here this Saturday.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, no way.
So Rudy will be here.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm sure he will be.
Rudy interviewed me for the documentary.
Awesome. That's so funny.
And I thought it went pretty well too. I haven't seen any of it, but
I'm
it was-
sure,
it was
yeah.
just before COVID.
Gotcha. I'm curious too about working with bands and like doing like the promoting and organizing and labor. Like what drew you to that work? Like was it a sense of fulfillment? I'm assuming it wasn't because you love the money.
No, there's no money. There was
Right.
very little. Even when I was on tour with the Dogmatics,
What brought you along? Like why were you there? Like what did you find in that?
this is going to change the conversation a little. When I was 13 or 14, music essentially saved my life. I didn't have any clue what I was going to do with my life. When I got out of high school, there was no option for me to go to a college or do anything other than get a job.
Yeah.
And previous to that, I had spent years hiding from the bad situation I was in with headphones on.
Oh
And I
wow,
would
yeah.
Put the headphones on and put on David Bowie, and I was away.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of, I was on the fence, and you're going to laugh your ass off when I say this, but the only thing I could think of doing that I wanted to do was be a cop. And then instead, I quit my job. I was selling hi-fi at the time, and I quit my job and got into a van with some guys that I knew only a little bit. And by the time the tour was over, they were my best friends, and after that, my whole life changed. So here on Saturday night, there'll be 100 people in here, and I'll know pretty much all of them. and I'm very well respected amongst all of those people.
Yeah.
But I did the first tour with them in 1980, beginning of 1985. We
With the
toured.
Dogmatics.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did the first tour. We went all the way up through Minneapolis and the Midwest, and then down to New York City and all that stuff. And that's when everything really changed. We were in the van, and there's nothing to do, and the guitar player taught me how to make some chords on the guitar, and that was enough to set me into my musical side of things.
The journey.
Yeah, as a band member. And that did well too, I think. We did pretty well. We had records out in Germany. We sold a lot of singles. We were on like the pop punk scene of the mid 90s. We did a lot in the time, but I had two junkies in my band. And I'm sorry, but
That's
that will
tough.
always fuck it up. And
Yeah.
one is now not with us, and another one, I can't. He's, as far as I know, he's still alive, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
And when you have two guys that are both songwriters, because they were both the main songwriters, that are both addicts in some sense, there's friction when there's no drugs between. If you have a good writing pair, you'll always see the yin and yang, or the positive and negative of the world spinning. You know, one guy wants to be the pop guy, the other guy wants to be the grit guy. You know, the Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, the Steve Tyler and Joe Perry. There's one guy that's pushing things to be catchy, and the other guy's trying to keep it real, and sometimes that makes the best music.
Yeah.
If not always, because you have there's
The
friction
tension,
there.
yeah.
The tension helps. Just as anything else that's usually negative tends to influence art in a positive way.
Yeah.
At least I've always felt that way. So that's what I'm thinking is the same. You know, tortured artists or alcoholics, or become Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
You know,
This is
he was,
true.
He was doing what, like a fifth of vodka a day, and he was beating.
He was definitely fucked,
Beating
yeah.
his wife, I think, is part of it as well.
Yeah.
And I've had these conversations with you, Theo, on more than one occasion, that you can't judge the art by the artist.
Yeah.
And I will stand by that till the day they put me in the ground. There's no way, and I will argue it online,
I've seen that.
and I will, because I don't believe that you can't do it. What
Yeah.
a boring life you'll have. And the most
true.
messed up people make some of the greatest music, some of the greatest art. So where do you stop? You're
Yeah.
going to judge this person today, whoever he is. I don't know who's the newest one that's been canceled. There's got to be somebody out there.
Probably Kanye.
Yeah, Kanye.
There you
The
go.
biggest one.
Yeah.
You know, and he made some great records.
Yeah, it's true.
So-
Iconic records.
Yes.
That's
So
true.
what do? Do you now say, I'm not going to have Kanye in my life anymore? Oh, Jimmy Page? I'm fine with Led Zeppelin.
Right.
Jimmy Page is a notorious pedophile.
Right.
But it was also the 70s, and it was different.
Uh-huh.
It was like it was bad.
Right.
It was bad. I asked somebody that worked for Zeppelin if that was blown out of proportion by the press or whatever, and she said no, actually it was worse, and we kept it down.
Holy
Even
shit.
then they knew it
Yeah.
was
Right.
like, you're bringing 15-year-olds into the office, Jimmy. You
That's
can't-
fucked, yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but Jimmy Page wrote some great music, and he's a hell of a guitar player.
Yeah.
John Lennon beat his first wife.
Right, yeah.
So if you're going to take a stand at Kanye, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You better take a stand on all of it,
Yeah.
or just fuck off. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Andy Warhol probably wasn't the greatest person to some of the people he was with.
Definitely not. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stories about his chaos and shit. And it's
Yeah.
funny because, like, it is true that, like, a lot of, like, good art does come out of that chaos, or, like, I don't know. But I think it's kind of interesting, too, even thinking about your own story and getting into the van with the Dogmatics
Yeah.
at this point. Like, your own life must have been pushed to the brink to be willing to
Yeah.
get in a fucking van
And-
with these
and-
people that you don't even know very well and to
push
take off.
Push to the brink is a good way to say it, and I'm not even sure if that's the right way. I was with no direction. Zero. I went from a house that was extremely chaotic. My mother is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
Oh, wow.
And if you don't know what that one is, look it up, because even the psychologists are like, fuck those people. Like, and I'm sorry that I said that about my mother, but I'm not in a way, because I think people need also to understand more about mental illness.
Yeah.
That's the one thing in this society that's wrong. Really wrong.
The way we address mental illness?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And I suffer from a lot because of my upbringing, and some of it is considered to be inherent. But I don't have borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
Right.
But I have what do they call it now? Clinical depression, which
Gotcha.
means good, strong depression. I have agoraphobia and PTSD.
Wow.
And I had been in therapy for about 15 years in order to make it so that I can sit here today with you and talk. Because I stopped drinking in my 30s, and it's when it all hit me.
All of that came out.
Oh yeah, bad, really bad. Let me know if you have to move.
Oh, no, sorry.
So
Taking one more.
I don't have a problem. I wouldn't have told my friends that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I have no problem anymore. I think if I can say it and somebody else goes, oh my God, I'm not alone, then
Yeah.
I'll feel better. Because there's some of it is easy to deal with and some of it's not. And the agoraphobia is probably the worst of all of them, which is not the fear of spiders, that's agoraphobia.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, right.
Agoraphobia is the fear of open spaces.
Okay.
So if you ever want to torture me and get some information out of me, drive me up to the Foxborough Stadium in the parking lot when there's no
Gotcha.
game. And
Wow.
Put me outside in the parking lot and drive away, and I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Yeah.
I'm not able to walk to the sidelines at that point. I would find the nearest light pole and lean against it. It's a very, very weird, and I don't even have it. Some people can't leave their houses,
Yeah.
and I don't have it that bad, thank God. I think medication has a lot to do with that. But the actual dealing with mental illness needs to be stepped up huge, and it will help with the crime, especially in New York City. But we need facilities. You need, like, every state should have one state-of-the-art, amazing facility that's divided between mental illness and addictions.
Yeah.
And have it staffed and have it done right, where people have to be held there at some points and others can come and go. That would be my dying wish in this world at this point, having suffered from mental illness my whole life, including what I saw as a young child.
Yeah.
Because I did see my mother attempt suicide.
That's
but
heavy.
But it was for show. But when you're 7 or 8 years old,
You don't know that.
you don't know that. And you don't even realize, I wouldn't even be able to tell you that 10 years ago.
Wow.
Without breaking that.
Yeah.
Because I probably blocked it out for 10 before that until it hit me. My therapy was very, very intense. Not always, but it was times where the next day I woke up and it was like I got beat with a baseball bat because of the tension going through your body.
Yeah.
I was locked up on the couch one time, and a doctor from the next room came in because I was wailing, Brian, and they were making sure that my social worker was okay. And I'm just like, it's kind of embarrassing. And then, I don't know, I had to go through it all.
Yeah.
And I did. And that was when I had my store in Boston, and I started going to therapy then. But anyways, we don't need to go on that all the time. But I do think that it makes for people to be more creative or more risk takers in ways too. And that's,
Yeah.
when I told my father, because my father liked that I was like in a sales job and I had to put a tie on, because that's the way we sold hi-fi back then. And he liked all that. And when I told him I was leaving to go on tour with a rock band, I might as well have just told him I killed 5 people. I mean, the way he looked at me was just like, you know,
Like, what are you doing?
What kind of asshole is you? Like, what are you doing to your life? It was terrible. My dad was from the greatest family.
Right.
So he was very, like, just get a job. That's
Yeah.
all. Just get a job.
Yeah.
And he was a great guy, actually a really wonderful human. But he was caught up with a woman that had borderline personality disorder, and he is what what is known as a swamp Yankee.
A swamp Yankee.
Yes.
Okay, I haven't heard the term.
It's basically somebody that has gone through the Depression, doesn't waste any food. Maybe like if I
Puts like a heel of bread back in the cabinet
Yes.
without throwing it
Yes.
away.
I didn't know
Right.
there was a term for that.
I was just saying the other day, he used to have one of those shaving brushes to put your
Yeah.
stuff on, but he would just throw the soap from the bath that was too tiny. That was what he used
Oh,
instead
yeah.
of buying shaving cream. That cost what at that time 30 cents a can or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
And inherently, they don't come off very warm. They don't understand like love.
Yeah.
Their love is provided.
Yeah.
And so you got somebody that's extremely needy, and that's what borderline personality is about. You push people away, and then you are upset that everybody left you.
Yeah.
My father didn't have any idea how to deal with it at all. So he sunk himself into work. And his work was, he was the executive director of the Plymouth Boys Club for 48 years. And he helped thousands of kids in this town. Not hundreds, thousands. And he never, he could have went and drank his life away.
Yeah.
And he didn't drink. So he did something good. And I'm more proud of him now than I was, 20 years ago, because I was always like, yeah, well, it takes two to argue. It takes two to, do this, that, and the other thing. But in hindsight, I get stopped here in Plymouth. I was walking out of Sabres a couple of years ago, and a guy in a big pickup truck comes, like he was leaving, he comes in this big loop, and I'm like, oh my God. And he pulls up and he goes, "You got to be Chet Downie's son." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "I can tell the way you're walking." And he says, your old man was one of the greatest men in my life." And I'm just like, "Okay." And he goes, No. He says, "You see the name on the side of this truck?" And I looked, and he was like, "That's my name. This is my business. My business is quite big now. I owe all of it to your father." It's a hard thing to swallow. I mean, it feels good, but you're like, you know what I mean? And then he said, "I was on a really bad path where I was at a fork in the road, and I could have went down, and your dad spent time with me, and I went down the right path, and now I own my own business, and I say it was him that did it." That's just one of many.
Yeah.
And I like that. It was the boys club. When I was about 14, I started realizing, because I'd go down there, and that was how my dad felt. He was still bonding with me. I would go down there, but when you get to be about 14, you're like, wait a minute, only my dad's here.
Gotcha, yeah.
And if anything, he was tougher on me to make an example to the kids that he wasn't going to be lighter on me.
Yeah.
And it was, again, a different time. Like back then, if two boys were fighting, because it wasn't the Boys and Girls Club at that time, my father, who was an enormous man and extremely strong, he would grab both, 70s, so long hair, he'd grab both kids by the hair and march them up to the office and sit them down in the office. And he never, ever got in trouble for any of that, because the families respected my dad so much that they figured he probably deserved it. And that's the way, and I've heard these stories too. I've heard stories that'd be like, but by today's standards, there's just no way that he would be able to run the club the way that he did.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he knew that when the girls started to become the girls club, and it wasn't that he was anti-female. He's like, you can't deal with girls like you do about guys. I can't grab them by the hair and march them upstairs, or take my size 14 shoe and put it in their
Backhand them,
butt.
right.
Yeah, there was no, he never struck anyone that way. I've seen him kick a kid in the butt.
Right. Yeah.
That would be about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Outside of the rest of whatever. But for years he told stories about all the different families in town, and who were the good people and who were not so good, and he made them hilarious.
Yeah.
The stories he had were absolutely hilarious. And I know we're going off on a tangent here, but
No, please.
This is a little bit about my,
going.
my life.
Yeah.
But his gravestone says, "Father of two, dad to thousands."
Oh wow.
Wow.
And I was the one who came up with that, and I love that I did, because it's as true can be if you find true Plymouthians. I had put up a picture of me on a Facebook page. It's called Plymouth Remember and When. And it's a picture of me down at Stevens Field. Have you been down to Stevens Field? Take them down Stevens Field.
You've been to Stevens Field.
I have?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the old rundown park that's down on the
Yeah.
bottom.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I remember. Okay.
And there's a baseball field, and I'm probably 5 or 6, and I'm sitting leaning on my dad, and it's a picture of my dad and me. I put it up on the Facebook page, and it got like 700 likes.
Oh.
And then people were messaging me going, "That's the best photo of your father, and I remember him at this time." And because he was always involved with the youth.
Yeah.
He was also the truant officer of the Plymouth Carver school system. So, with a 9th grade education.
Oh, wow.
Incredible.
Now you need a
master's or
a
some
master's
shit,
in sociology and all sorts of other stuff. But he did that from 1968 to 1990 something.
Wow.
So, it was always like, "Oh, we have to run from Chet. Chet's coming to get us," and that kind of stuff. But he was even fair with that, and that was some of the other people, and more of the female side of things that I got any kind of positive was from like, "Oh, he took me home from school. He was a nice guy, and he talked to me all the way home about what I did and why I shouldn't do that, but he did it in a way, it was like, I don't know, I just hear these kind of things like that."
Yeah.
And another guy said to me, which summed it up to me best, was he was a very, 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 very nice man who had a look like, but just don't go there. Like don't fuck with me.
Yeah.
I'm a nice guy, but don't make me mad. He had a little stern side to him that would come out, but he was a good guy. He died 20 years ago. And they flew the flags in Plymouth at half staff when he died, which I still think is neat.
Yeah.
It sounds like you left behind a
Huge legacy.
Yeah.
Huge.
Wow.
Matter of fact, since we're speaking about this, I'll go a little bit deeper. I mentioned Stevens Field. So he ran the boys' club, would open at 3 o'clock after school. So he worked for the school system, then he ran the club. And in the summer, both were closed.
Yeah.
The club closed because school was closed. So he started working in the recreation department doing youth services down at the Stevens Field when they would have back then they actually had arts and crafts.
Yeah.
And they had a teacher that would be there for arts and crafts, and you could play ball and all the other stuff. Then he bought out the guy that ran the concession stand down there. It was a bathhouse. It's not there anymore. And he ran that for years and years. He always wanted his own business, so he just ran this. And then he sold everything too cheap because he wanted to be fair to the kids. So it was, and he ended up having an ice cream truck, and he would only go to what would be projects in Plymouth, which was at the time Mayflower Village up on South Street.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones on Olmsted Terrace in North Plymouth. There's a little thing there. That's where he brought his truck. He didn't go anywhere else. He went to where the poor kids were.
Yeah.
And I would be like, "You should raise your prices." Well, you can't do that where I go. You can't do that where I go. Kids families don't have a lot of money. And so essentially, you don't make a whole lot of money at the boys' club, and you don't make a whole lot of money driving the ice cream truck around. So essentially, you're just being a nice person, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was.
One thing I think is really interesting too is we talk about, or we have so many people in our communities that might have grown up this exact same way you did,
Sure.
with the same kind of hardships, in the same communities, maybe crime, drug use, coming from kind of struggling families.
Yes.
That end up chronically in prison or still doing drugs or fucking dead or in this. But I guess here you are, an experienced musician,
Music saved my life.
storied life,
Music saved my
running a
life.
club. You credit all that to your experience in music.
Absolutely. 100%. I was very young, and my brother's 4 years older than me. And when one year he talked me into getting a stereo for Christmas, that was all we were going to get if we got it. It was probably $300 at the time. That's for both of us. And I said yes. I don't even know why. I probably wasn't, outside of pop radio, AM radio at the time. I didn't listen to, I liked music, but I wouldn't say I was putting records on. And then he started coming home with records, but they weren't Foghat and Led Zeppelin records. They were Lou Reed, Velvet Underground, David Bowie, Patti Smith, And I gravitated to all of that stuff, and I just never let it go, ever. My Instagram, I don't do much on Facebook anymore. I don't like. I joke.
Too chaotic.
I'm not politically correct. I'm not. I'm not. It doesn't mean that I'm anything that I've probably been labeled over a period of time, which is a whole discussion within itself. But it's too chaotic. It's not as intimate as it was.
Yeah.
So I have an Instagram account, and I every night 340 and probably more. I try to think of this days a year. I smoke a joint, and I put on a record, and I take a photo of the record, and I listen to it, and I review the record. And it's not like Rolling Stone reviews. It's it's simplistic kind of stuff. And I do that every night. And then people like it or they comment on it and so on and so forth. Every night. I can't really sleep unless I listen to half an album a night. So over the period of years, I put this huge, expensive stereo system together, and that's what I do, and that's my fun. That's my relaxation time.
Yeah.
And I have been smoking cannabis since I was probably 13 or 14. And I never knew why I continued. I was self-medicating. It's for sleep. Sleep is one of my toughest things because a lot of the fighting started when I was supposed to be sleeping for school the next day. So I was doing it and didn't even know at one point because nobody here, nobody sees me stoned. I've never been stoned in the store.
Yeah.
Nothing. Never. Because I don't like to. I like to be by myself and absorb whatever I'm into.
Yeah.
So, and it helps me sleep. So I literally have been doing that. I start thinking about it, and it's like, yeah, I've smoked for a long time. I just don't smoke a lot. Like, I have friends that can smoke all day long. I can't come here and work stoned.
Yeah.
I can't. I've left here stoned a couple times with musicians that I knew. But,
Sure.
But I have been smoking weed for many, many years.
Yeah.
Many. And now I feel good that what was happening to me has come out to be a fact. That it is medication, and it
Yeah.
can be used as medication. So that, and the fact is when it finally went legal, it's weird for people my age.
It's weird to me.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. But I mean, like, you come from a point when, like, in order to get a bag, it was 4 phone calls and hush this and that and the other thing, and nobody ever spoke of it. To someone mails me a menu now from some other places. It's like, you're like, I walked in one day. The guy gave me a menu in the store, and I went up to get my coffee up at Gunther Tootie's.
Oh, yeah.
And I walked in and I had the menu with my hand, and I just looked at the girls, and they're like, they're 15, 16 working there, and I went, you have no idea what this means to me. And they're like, what is it? I'm like, it's a cannabis. Oh, like, no big deal. I'm like, you have no idea. It's a fucking menu that has weed on it. Like, I can pick shit. It blew me away. It was, it really did. It was, and I don't go to a lot of stores, like, whatever you call them now. I've gone to a couple. Yeah, they're too expensive.
They are expensive.
So I try to, it's usually the street where you can still find good weed now. Not before, but you can now.
Yeah.
Before it was like somebody smuggled in some Hawaiian Maui Wowie.
Right.
Like you've been smoking like this like half twig Mexican for like 2 years, and then someone pulls out this little joint of. I remember the first time I smoked it. I did like 2 hits, and I was like fucking gone for
melted your brain
out of my mind. It was absolutely out of my mind. And now I probably smoke consistently stuff that's stronger.
Yeah.
But that was then, and my brother and all his friends were like really bad into all sorts of drugs.
Yeah.
So like every once in a while, something like Thai stick or Maui Wowie would pop up, and that was the least of what they really cared about anyways. A lot of my friends were. My brother is an alcoholic, though sober. A good friend of mine was literally the town of Plymouth drunk, and he's been sober now for 30 years.
Wow.
And they weren't just drinking.
Yeah.
They were smoking angel dust. They were dropping Quaaludes. They would all of it.
Yeah.
All of it, whatever it took, they were doing.
Yeah, that's
But
serious
again,
shit.
it was a different time. It was a different time. The most, kind of winding back to music, you were talking about me walking into the Rat. Truly, probably the biggest wow factor to me ever was my first concert, which was David Bowie at the Boston Garden. It's the first show. I was 14. I had never been to the Boston Garden, ever.
Yeah.
And people have said to me, well, your dad was into sports and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but he didn't take his kids to...
Swamp Yankee? Is that what
Yeah,
you said?
yeah, yeah.
There's no room for tickets.
Yeah,
With a lifestyle like that.
Right. or like, you know, like if I had a pain in my leg or something and my bone wasn't sticking through my skin, just
Walk
rub
it
it.
off.
Yeah, rub it.
Right.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll know when it's broken. That kind of stuff. And he also said stuff to me like, which again, today would like, I don't know, horrify people. But if I was whining and stuff, he'd be like, want me to get your Barbies? Do you want to play dolls? Like that kind of stuff. That was how he kind of shamed you into, okay, I'll shut up now.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. But
Yep.
And it was never meant with ill intent.
Yeah.
You know, it was a different time and a different kind of person. And that's the thing I think everybody is starting to forget in this world.
Yeah.
Everybody, first of all, has their sins. And everybody comes from a different world. Everybody has their own little world.
Yeah.
And so what I see now is everybody just propping up on Facebook or on these social media and putting down everybody else because they're the virtuous one. They are the one who has it all figured out. And I don't like that. Because usually the people that are the loudest are the ones that are the worst offenders.
Right.
Yeah.
In my world, the biggest homophobes turned out to be the gay. It's just, it's virtue signaling is through the roof and then some. And I hate that. I like people to be honest. It's okay that you dated 15-year-olds when you were a rock star. Just talk about it or something. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that before somebody comes after me like that's okay. I'm just saying like that. We all have our sins. We've all done shit we shouldn't have done. We've all said stuff we shouldn't have done. What gives me the right to label you that way? Because I've done it too. I don't correct me if I'm wrong because I don't.
Everybody has skeletons.
Yeah.
I guess so.
And yes, you want to live, you know, the cleanest world you can,
Sure.
in the best way that you possibly can. And I find that most of those people are not on Facebook telling everybody.
That's true.
You know, if you brought it back to my dad when he passed away, I found 2 boxes of awards from the Boys Clubs of America given to him that he shoved in boxes and put in the basement. Meant nothing to him. Nothing. That had nothing to do with what he was doing.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know they were there. You know, he had stuff, Richard Nixon signed stuff and everything else,
Wow.
you know, he had all sorts of awards for how long he helped out the kids and so on and so forth. But it wasn't to win an award.
Yeah.
Now online it seems like you want to win an award for being the most virtuistic of everybody. That's my political stance.
Yeah.
And if I have any stances now on any of it, and I hated Trump and I don't like Biden, I think all of government is in for themselves and nothing else.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stand as a art warrior.
There you
And
go.
I will stand up for Jackson Pollock. I'll stand up for anybody that's making art. Might not stand up for them and say that they're going to be my best friend, but that's one hell of a piece, you know?
Yeah.
And again, usually it's struggle. Usually it's people that are internally
Fucked up.
fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, again, the biggest one is John Lennon to me.
Yeah.
He gets a pass. Why the fuck does John Lennon get a pass?
Good question.
Because he wrote "Give Peace a Chance."
Yeah.
That's just him pointing his finger somewhere else.
Yeah. It's true.
And-
And it's funny too because you're talking about like self-medication and like awareness with mental health. I feel like for a lot of people, art and music and writing is like a more positive bent on self-medicating. Like it's
Absolutely.
an outlet and it's a way to kind of take yourself out of whatever situation you're in and put it towards something positive, which
Absolutely.
maybe is why you get this good art out of people that maybe are more fucked up.
Right.
Or not fucked up is like a bad way to say it. And myself included.
No.
Yeah.
As I said to Brian when we first started, I'm not politically correct. Say fucked up all you want.
I'm
while
fucked up, so
Right.
I'm allowed to say it.
You know, because you are, and I am.
Yeah.
We're all fucked up in some way too. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's and I've said this to you in the store before. I said that's now going to be that's my line. That's where I stop. Don't fuck with the arts.
Yeah.
Just leave everybody alone, because if you start trying to police that as far as mental illness or people that are doing the wrong thing, you're going to be there all day policing people, because that's the people that are doing art.
Well, it's funny too. We're talking about the store. I just wanted to draw the parallel. Like when you're talking about your dad and like interacting with like all those kids and the influence that he had in the community around here.
Yes, big, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like when I was growing up, everybody used to go to your store when we were hanging out downtown.
Yeah.
Like me and all of my friends growing up from being like, I don't know how old I was when you started doing that, but like 15 or something to like when I moved, basically. Like me, Emerson, Noah and his friends sometimes, like all of our friends, people, the girls at Kiskadee, the Gunther Tooties people, like they would all come into the shop, and that was where it was like you would hang out there, you'd hang out at Kiskadee. When Kiskadee closed, you go to Blue Blinds, you lie about it, you go to the store.
Right. No, and you're right.
So-
It's true. And I always tried to. I've always loved, like as far as the store is concerned.
Yeah.
I love everyone that comes in. First of all, there's my capitalism, because I want you to spend some money, because that's how I support myself.
There you go.
But I liked the young kids,
Yeah.
like the real young kids that were coming in.
Yeah.
Not even like such the teenagers, like the 13-year-olds. One of them I'm still friends with he follows me on Instagram.
Oh.
And he's amazing. He knows so much, and he's now in his 20s.
Yeah.
Or maybe 20. But anyways, like, I loved that. You know, there was one time a kid came in and he was dressed like we can go into a whole long story about this, like a skinhead. But skinheads were not racist.
Right, there's a nuance
Yeah.
to the
There's nuance
skin-
to that.
Okay,
It's nuance
sure,
to
sure.
everything. But anyways, he had like little braces on and Doc
Right.
Martens. And I wanted to take him home. I wanted him to be my kid. He was adorable. And he was like buying records and stuff
Yeah.
with his dad. And I just thought that was so fucking cool. Like,
Aw.
because, he didn't know all of what went on with skinhead movement. And his dad, I know his dad educated him properly.
Yeah.
Right.
And he just liked the look of it.
Yeah.
Well, I like the look of it. It's a bunch of shitheads in the fucking early 80s that fucked it up for the real
Yeah.
skinheads.
Right.
And again, if you say that you listen to the skinhead music, or if I just listen to this, I've been attacked for records that I've listened to.
Yeah.
Why would you listen to that? That guy became this. Well, he wasn't this then,
Yeah.
or... As far as art, I don't know. I just like what I like.
Yeah.
I love your stuff. You know that.
thanks.
You
Yeah.
were doing ads for me at the store.
Yeah.
And I did that because you were a young kid that wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
So here's $50.
Yeah, that's
Make some
awesome.
art for me. You know what I mean? Like and maybe that's the dad in me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? My dad, where I'm like, I want to support that.
Yeah.
Why would I do something else? Mm-hmm. First of all, she works cheap.
Right. Yeah.
No, but I mean, and I still have all the originals, and
Yeah.
I'll never get rid of those.
That's awesome.
So it's because first of all, they were great. I like anything that has to do with like alien look shit,
Yeah.
anyways. And I'm not like a Star Watcher or anything, but
Yeah.
I like campy shit. I watch kung fu movies from the 70s. I watch black exploitation movies from the 70s. This is what I like. It's just, and when people say black exploitation, they think that it was somehow whites exploiting the blacks. No, it was black directors and everything else. It's just that they pushed them a lot in the 70s.
Yeah, I have no idea
So-
what that is, that genre.
Look up, it's a movie called Superfly. They did a remake of it like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
The
Interesting.
original's from 1972.
Wow.
And the soundtrack was done by Curtis Mayfield. And it's the greatest soundtrack. I like the old Godzilla movies from the 60s.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah, aren't they?
Yeah.
Aren't they? And you start watching them today, like from when I watched them years ago, and now that I understand the arts,
Yeah.
some of the shit that they made and the scenes they made are incredible. They're incredible. You start looking at it, you're going, all that shit was handmade. There was no digital green screen shit going on here.
No, practical effects.
Yeah, they made little tiny villages and then they burned them with firecrackers.
Yeah.
So I love that shit. So that's
so cool.
That's part of, I guess, all of it to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big movie fan, and Taxi Driver is my favorite movie of all time. If you haven't seen that, I would highly.
Oh, I've seen that. That's a good one. Yeah.
There's a guy that tried to do the right. Travis Bickle. He was trying to do the right thing, but he was warped from the war.
Yeah.
So he couldn't do the right thing. But his heart was actually almost in the right place. He was trying to save a prostitute in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he was whack.
Right.
So he didn't know how to conduct himself in social manners in any way. But as far as a movie, it's the greatest.
Yeah, definitely a bizarre movie. I didn't really understand it until I watched it for a second time.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this sunk in a little more.
Yeah.
The first time I was like, what the fuck did I just watch?
If you Google search it, there's people that have done their thesis on character studies of him.
Wow.
I mean, Robert De Niro was out of his mind great in that movie. But so was Jodie Foster, and she was only 13.
Yeah, a long time ago.
And she was playing a prostitute.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was like, for 1975, that was some edgy fucking shit going on there. And
True.
I think they knocked it out of the park. I really do. He's got the feeling of that New York City that's no longer there. The driving down this through Times Square when he's saying one day a big rain's going to come and wash all this shit off the streets and stuff like that. And in his narrative part of the show is or what he's doing when it's inner thought, whatever you want to call that.
Monologue?
Voiceover monologue, right.
Because it was the first time I was in New York City. It was horrible. I like dark nightclubs.
Yeah.
I like dark. I'm better at night than I am at 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm more on top of my game at 11 at night.
Yeah.
I'm just that guy. You know, and which works good when you're touring a country, especially when you don't even have
We're
cell
booking
phones.
at a club.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I could talk forever, but I think we're probably, I don't know how long
This is, we have plenty. This has been a great interview.
Yeah.
But I get going.
No,
I'm
That's
sure I
what we
did it-
want. That's good.
I'm sure I did it in the store as well, you know, to you and the kids. But even your mom and dad used to come in.
Yeah.
You know? I think, I don't know, everyone has to have a purpose, a meaning in life, and I guess that's mine.
Yeah.
As a guy that's getting older and he's questioning what he did with his entire life. And I am. And I don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I would have made more money if I became a cop. The 100 people that are going to be here on Saturday, I wouldn't know any of them.
Yeah.
I'll
That's a
take
trade-off.
that
Any day.
over the money.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
Well, shit, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to us.
Nope.
It's been fun.
Part two if you want. I love this.
Yeah, maybe. Awesome. Hell yeah. Great.